Hi everyone, my name is Kapianga and I'm from Zambia. The moral test of government, according to Herbert H. Humphrey, is how the government treats its children. Applying this test to my country, one reaches an inescapable conclusion that my country is failing miserably when one considers its juvenile justice system. This is because, firstly, the deplorable conditions of the juvenile detention facilities in my country is world-renowned. Secondly, the obligations that my government, through its policies and laws, places on an individual to raise their own children are less stringent than those it places on the individual to raise their own pet. That sounds outrageous, but think about it. If in my country I got a pet python, there is absolutely no scenario where the law would permit me to abdicate my responsibility to raise that python. Even assuming I woke up one day and I was waist deep in his stomach, the law would not permit me to take it to the police and say, I've had it with this python, deal with it. However, under Zambian law, you are permitted, when your child commits even very small acts of delinquency, to take it to the nearest magistrate and say, I can't handle this kid anymore, please get him off my hands. And then the magistrate has power to sentence that kid to up to 3 years in a detention facility. The roll-on effect of this is acts of misconduct are criminalized, and when you put children into detention facilities, they are overcrowded. And also, when you take kids out of school and place them in detention facilities, you create an incapacity, because then they are unable to gain from the education that their friends are getting. Also, it creates stigma, which in the end pushes them to recidivate in the long run. Lastly, it is now scientifically proven that juveniles perceive the world differently than adults do. I'll give you an example. Last year I met a kid. His name is Clive. Clive comes from the western province of Zambia, which we call the witchcraft capital. He had been convicted of murder, I should have added. One afternoon, Clive and his grandfather were having a beer with some friends when a scuffle broke out between Clive and his grandfather. And the grandfather said to Clive angrily, before this day is over, one of us is going to die. Now Clive is 17, and he believed the grandfather, and he killed him. Already that shows you that juveniles, the way they view the world is colored with immaturity. And this is also reflected in Zambian law. For example, juveniles cannot own property. They cannot contract. In fact, under Zambian criminal law, the evidence of a person under the age of 14 is treated as suspect. And you cannot convict an individual based solely on the evidence of a person who's under the age of 14. The Supreme Court has held that this is because people under the age of 14 are incapable of understanding the nature of legal proceedings. This incapacity comes from the fact that their young minds are incapable of distinguishing between fantasy and fact. However, these same individuals with this mental immaturity are expected, when criminal proceedings are brought against them, to defend themselves. Now, this can be they are simply not equipped to deal with it. As a consequence, you find a disproportionate number of convictions against juveniles. Now, this situation can obviously not be permitted. And as a consequence, my organization and I are working to create a juvenile justice system that's going to allow children to be children. That will give them a little bit of leeway to make the mistakes that we all made growing up. We are going to create a juvenile justice system that will make detention of a juvenile the utmost last resort and only limited to instances where the juvenile commits acts of personal violence. We're also going to ensure that the few juveniles that end up in the criminal justice system are treated humanely, and they're also equipped to re-establish themselves in society when all is said and done. Thank you very much.